travelled from 3 continents by sea, by air, by train or by car. The pilgrims arrived in Paris, France, where they picked up the coach on which they will spend many, many hours.
Blessed the Virgin among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed the Virgin among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed the Virgin among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
So, on Friday, the 4th of August 2017, from Paris we travelled to Lourdes via Tours and Bordeaux, some 900 kilometres or 560 miles. This was the longest drive of the whole pilgrimage and was designed to test the mettle of our faith. Everyone was given a bag load of goodies to aid them physically, mentally, and most of all spiritually on our pilgrimage to France, Spain and Portugal, where the Mother of God has passed, leaving her footprints for us to follow. The drive was littered with engaging talks, rosaries, hymns, evening prayer and films, even some jokes, and in a few cases, restful sleep. Compared to the previous generations of pilgrims in decades and centuries past, it was an absolutely luxurious journey that God's Mother had granted us. That said, if anyone experienced any discomfort or irritation, they certainly did not show it, which is a true sign of a pilgrim. On arriving in Lourdes, we found the grey skies, a very damp ambience, and a chill which may have shook those of us with Caribbean sensitivities. Yet the welcome was warm, and our excitement was quite apparent as we gathered for our first Mass of the pilgrimage.
May Almighty God have mercy on us, forgive us our sins, and bring us to everlasting life.
Amen.
We stayed in Lourdes for a number of days, engaging in the daily activities, which are the Blessed Sacrament processions. Mass in the grotto,
Pardonnez-nous, bon Dieu, pardonnez-nous, Jésus, pardonnez-nous, Jésus, pardonnez-nous, Seigneur, pardonnez-nous, Seigneur, pardonnez-nous, bon Dieu.
All glory and honor is yours forever and ever. Amen.
Marian torchlight processions, spring baths, the way of the cross,
For those who suffer from depression, those who have lost hope, those who feel the burden of tending for a loved one who is sick, Lord, in your mercy,
Hear our prayer.
I love you, Jesus, my love above all things. I repent my whole heart of having offended. Never permit me to separate myself from thee again. Grant that I may love thee always, and then do with me what thou wilt. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
Photographs and many delightful meals together. And in all of this, we were immersed in Lourdes' history of events of God's grace bestowed on a poor, uneducated girl in, by the world's opinion, an unlovely part of France. For if Lourdes had been unlovely, the Immaculate Conception made it lovely for all to see. And if Lourdes had always been lovely, then the Holy Spirit removed the cataract from the eyes of all. Whichever it was for a reason, which was what Our Lady asked of us. Pray to God for sinners, to do penance, to kiss the ground for the conversion of sinners, to drink from the spring and wash in it, to tell the priest that people should come here in procession, and that a chapel should be built on the site. And it was for this that we came. We depart from Lourdes to Valladolid, Spain, a 5.5-hour journey, some 550 kilometers, or 342 miles.
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in
As we pass through Valladolid so we can celebrate Mass at San Benito's Church, which was the former Benedictine monastery of San Benito el Rio, and is now the parish church. It was erected at the site of the old Royal Alcazar, a fortress or castle, which was designed originally in a Gothic style.
We, in this wonderful church of San Benito, are to know absolutely nothing, but the sheer magnificence of the architecture is an indication of the degree of faith that erected this temple to God.
Although the facade, with its gate tower shape, was designed in 1569 in a Renaissance-influenced style of Rodrigo Gil el Hontanon. Originally, the towers that flanked the entrance were considerably taller, but these were shortened in the 19th century due to concerns about their structural integrity. All in all, quite a remarkable church. After Mass at St. Freya Hospital Chapel, we travelled to Santiago, some 450 kilometers or 280 miles, which takes 5 hours.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Santiago de Compostela. Santiago de Compostela is dedicated to the Apostle St. James the Greater, the brother of St. John, and ranks third after Rome and Jerusalem as a place of Christian pilgrimage. The body of the saint is buried in the cathedral. Frequently, pilgrims would bring home scallop shells as proof of their journey, and these in turn became the symbol of St. James and of pilgrims. The magnificent cathedral has the world's largest incenser, weighing some 80 kilograms, and is 1.6 meters in height. Its name, Botafumeiro, which means smoke expeller. As it swung across the wings of the cathedral, some 30 kilograms of incense is burned. Assisted by our Spanish tour guide, we take the historical events and some of the beauty of northern Spain, including the participation in the Pilgrim's Mass.
Just in time, just in time.
Are you finished eating already? My goodness me.
Your brother was asking for you.
Where is he?
When you were here for me. He went.
So all of you all against me. Don't worry, I got big back. You know? So Brian, that's father for you. Maybe because you don't know that he didn't buy.
Slopes down.
No, they're before fresh.
Was the mother of St. James. About 600 years old. You see an Annunciation with St. Michael and the Virgin, and she is pregnant. You can see her belly, and then we call her Our Lady of the Hope, because she's expecting, Esperanza, expectation. And then you see the other Our Lady of the Milk. You see her with her hand on her breast to give it to the child. They are very popular in the region because they were symbols, they are still symbols of the community. So they will come here. And you see two restaurants. And you see the way you can feel safe in town as they leave the bread there and the coke and the water and everything until they open perhaps at 10:30 or 11 o'clock. So it is very safe. Okay.
Then we head back onto the coach heading to Balazar in Portugal, which takes nearly 3 hours, and it's 220 kilometers or 136 miles. As we head into Portugal on Friday, the 11th of midday, we arrive for Mass at the tomb of Blessed Alexandrina de Costa, a beautiful victim soul. After Mass in the parish church, where a large painting of the Blessed Alexandrina hangs above the altar, we visit the Blessed Sacrament Chapel to contemplate the acceptance of suffering as bravely and perfectly exercised by Blessed Alexandrina. As we peruse through her home, now a shrine of a young woman who offered herself for others in a miraculous way, we are touched by the simplicity of her life and enthralled by her story.
So this is the kitchen? Yes. Yeah? You know why? Because of the easy they got to do this. We have these we have these little coffee and teapots.
Dining room, então, the photos are from our doctor's children.
Family pictures, children adopted.
15, no.
Children?
14.
Oh, 14.
Mas ao todo, 16.
Agora a família da Sandrina tem irmãs e irmãos?
One sister.
Só irmão. Okay, she had only one brother.
Work room, Window where you jump it.
Who can do it now?
4 meters. Here is the Passion of Christ.
She experienced the Passion of Christ. Yeah.
She'll be coming round.
Mother and sister room.
Okay.
Alexandrina Maria da Costa was born on the 30th of March 1904 in Balazar, Portugal. Received a solid Christian education from her mother. On Holy Saturday of 1918, 3 men violently entered Alexandrina's home, and to preserve her purity she jumped from the window, falling 14 feet to the ground, badly injured. The doctors diagnosed her condition as irreversible, with the prediction of total paralysis. Alexandrina was initially able to drag herself to the church where, to the great amazement of the parishioners, she would remain hunched over in prayer. With her paralysis and pain worsening, however, she was eventually rendered immobile, and from the 14th of April 1925 until her death 30 years later, she would remain bedridden, completely paralyzed. Her prayers to Our Lady for healing led her to realize that her vocation was suffering. Our Lady has given me an even greater grace. First, abandonment, then complete conformity to God's will, finally, the thirst for suffering. Then from the 3rd of October 1938 until the 24th of March 1942, Alexandrina lived the 3-hour Passion of Jesus every Friday, during which her paralysis was overcome, and only moving through excruciating physical and spiritual pain, she would relive the Stations of the Cross. She was also diabolically assaulted and tormented with temptations against the faith and with injuries inflicted on her body. The last phase of Alexandrina's life began on the 27th of March 1942 and lasted until her death 13.5 years later. She received no nourishment of any kind except the Holy Eucharist, at one point weighing just 73 pounds. This was verified by medical doctors who, while keeping her under close observation, often treated her in a cold, hostile way. As the Lord had said to her, "You will very rarely receive consolation. I want that while your heart is filled with suffering, on your lips there is a smile." Her dying words on the 13th of October 1955 were, "I am happy because I am going to heaven." Back on the coach as the heat and the beautiful rich blue sky shines on us as we make our way south to Fatima, some 240 kilometers or 150 miles, which takes 2.5 hours. Saturday, the 12th of August, in Fatima. We arrive in Fatima and we attend the 5:30 Mass at the Chapel of Apparitions.
Let us pray. Father, you have given us the mother of your Son to be our mother also. Grant us that, by obeying the appeals of the Blessed Virgin Mary, we may always work through prayer and penance for the kingdom of Christ and attain eternal happiness. We ask this through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God forever and ever.
Followed by a hearty breakfast and rest, ready for the Stations of the Cross in the afternoon. After a little souvenir hunting, the rosary and torchlight procession beckoned, and a truly moving experience it was. Sunday the 13th of August, 9 a.m., 2 months short of the 100th anniversary of the miracle of the sun. We had the rosary, followed by a concelebrated mass. And finally, the adios to our Blessed Lady. Between May 13th and October 13th, 1917, Our Lady appeared 6 times to 3 children, Jacinta and Francisco Marto, and Lucia de Santos, asking them to recite the rosary, to do penance, to pray for sinners, to avoid sin, to tell people to come to the Cova da Aria in procession, and that a chapel should be built on this site. She also asked for the consecration of Russia to her Immaculate Heart, so that peace could be given to the world, and promised a miracle so that all would believe. The promise was fulfilled with the Dance of the Sun on October the 13th, when she appeared as Our Lady of Mount Carmel. She told the children 3 secrets. These were a vision of hell, how to save souls from hell, and a vision of the death of the Pope and other religious figures. As we contemplate these secrets, we pray for the consecration of Russia and all Our Lady's requests. As we visit the homes of the children, we see the simplicity of their lives. And ponder the messages they had been given for us. And so we contemplate the secrets. We pray for the consecration of Russia. And all Our Lady's requests as we make a short trip of 40 kilometers to Our Lady of Fatal. But unfortunately, the shrine was closed. As the story goes, in a time of great drought and hunger in the 1400s, A shepherd girl was crying near her small flock of sheep. In the middle of the clump of ferns, there appeared a woman who asked her, "Why are you crying, little one?" "I am hungry," replied the little girl. "Go and ask your mother for bread," said the lady. "I have already done so." "But she has no bread to give me," the little girl answered. "Go on home and ask your mother again. Tell her it was a woman that told you that the ark had bread," instructed the lady. Obeying the lady, the little girl went home and gave the message to her mother, who quickly went to the ark where she kept the bread. She found it full of bread that was so good and beautiful that it seemed not to have been made on earth. Having eaten, the happy shepherd girl returned to the place of the apparition, where later the little chapel of the remembrance was built. And again she saw the lady, who spoke to her like this: "Go to the people of your village and tell them that I am the Mother of God, and I want them to build me a chapel in this place where I will be worshipped." The little girl gave the people in her village the lady's orders. The villagers made their way to the site and found there a tiny and beautiful image of the Holy Virgin, next to which was a miraculous spring. They erected a small chapel and, with the water of the spring, many miracles took place. The legend of Nazria has it that on the early morning of September the 14th, 1182, Dom Faust of Porto de Mos, Portugal, was out hunting in his domain near the coast when he saw a deer, which he immediately began chasing. All of a sudden, a heavy fog rose from the sea. The deer ran towards the top of the cliff, and Dom Faust, in the midst of the fog, was cut off from his companions. When he realized he was on the edge of the cliff, he recognized the place. He was next to a small grotto where a statue of Our Lady with the infant was venerated. Thus he prayed out loud, "Our Lady, help me!" All of a sudden, the horse miraculously stopped at the end of the rocky point, suspended over the void, known as the point of the miracle, thus saving the rider and his mount from a drop of more than 100 meters, a fall that would certainly have caused their death. Dom Faust dismounted and went down to the grotto to pray and give thanks for the miracle. Then he ordered his companions to fetch masons in order to build a small chapel over the grotto, so that the miraculous image could be easily venerated by all and as a memorial to the miracle that saved him. Then, before walling up the grotto, the masons destroyed the existing altar, where amongst the stones they found an ivory chest containing some relics and an old parchment describing the story of the little wooden statue, 1 palm high, of Our Lady, seated, breastfeeding baby Jesus, seated on her left leg. According to the parchment, the statue must have been venerated since the beginning of Christianity in Nazareth, in Palestine. It was rescued from the iconoclasts of the 5th century by a monk, Cariaco. And from Nazria, we move on to Toledo en route to Guadalupe, some 550 kilometers or 341 miles, a 5.5-hour journey.
Toledo is on a granite rock, and Toledo is most of it surrounded by River Tajo, T-A-G-O, the longest river in the Iberian Peninsula. Tajo River has 1,008 kilometers long. As you know, the Tajo River ends in Lisbon, in the capital of Portugal. On the left-hand side, we have a quite new bridge. It's the 14th century, Saint Martin Bridge, the beautiful bridge. Saint Martin. On the top of the hill, we have the monastery of Saint John of the Monarch. Toledo is more than 4,000 years old, Roman that arrived 2 centuries before Christ. Hispania means the land of rabbit. We have many. And this was Hispania. Hispania was a Roman province. After Roman, when the Roman Empire was broken, Visigoth came from north, from Germany. And Toledo was the capital of Spain under Visigoth from the 4th century till 8th century. In 711, Muslims came from south and they took part of Spain. It's amazing that we still have in Toledo remain from these medieval times. For instance, we have a beautiful Muslim temple, El Cristo de la Luz. We have 2 synagogues, not in use because we don't have neither Muslim or Jewish nowadays in Toledo. Most of the population, 98% were Catholic, but we still have this building from this period in which they were living peacefully together. The city of Toledo was taken again by Christian in 1085, 11th century, but it was still a long period of convivence because the Christian king allowed Muslim and Jews to stay for long, till 15th century. In 15th century, 1492, the Catholic monarch Isabel and Fernando asked Moorish and Jewish, you have to choose between God Catholic, convert, or move away of Spain with all your belongings, with the exception of your houses, your lands, coin, jewelry, silver, and gold. And here we have the new escalator. The old one were made in the millennium, and these are just 3 years old. Then this will help us to go to the top. Then here we are. You can understand why we are proud of the escalator, electrical escalator.
St. John of the Cross, did he live here or die here?
He died here. He died here.
Where's the palace? Where's the palace?
The palace is on the top. We are talking about this building, the Congress. The Congress Palace, Congress. And the name is Domenicos Theotokopoulos. El Greco usually sign in Greek, the sign that Domenicos Theotokopoulos was his name, El Greco, because he was born in Greece. This is why he was born in Greece, in Crete, and this is why we call it El Greco. But his real name was Domenico Theotokopoulos. We are now on the walls. We are on the walls that surround the city. The city started to grow in 10th century to north, because north is the plainest part, the way to Madrid. This is why, when we surround, I told you, the protected area, Cigarrales area, and the city grew today just to the flat, to north. And even there was a necessity of making another walls in 10th century when the city was growing a little bit. This new neighborhood, Arrabal. Arrabal means outside, outside of the walls. Come this way. And plenty of hunting dishes. The traditional dishes here are red partridge, deer, whale boar, rabbits. Rabbits, yeah, we eat rabbit. Yesterday, my brother cooked a beautiful rabbit with plenty of onion. Take a look from here, how gorgeous and beautiful the cathedral is. Here on the left, we have the cloister, the spire, 93 meters and a half of tower, and it's connected, the cathedral is connected by an arch to the Archbishop Palace, the Archbishop Palace, the Episcopal Palace, when the Archbishop or Cardinal, in case the Pope named him, and now we have Archbishop, the Primate of Spain. This is a huge building. We can compare it like Vatican for Spain. Take a look at this entrance. This is the entrance to the cloister, and these high neckers And high knockers were for horsemen, when people went on the horses. This is why it's so high. We have many in our houses also. Take a look at how beautiful the square. This is the second big space we have in town, because the other are narrow, small streets. This is the City Hall Square, and we have plenty of interesting buildings from here. The Cathedral of Toledo. This is the main entrance, but we are not going to go inside from the main entrance, because this is only open when we have the King or Queen of Spain coming. As a curiosity, I was guiding Philip and Leticia 3 years ago, but they were still Prince and Princess when they went in Greco's year. And as Prince and Princess, we went for the back door. Still, this is a symbolical thing. We lost the important when Philip II, the king, Philip II decided to move the capital from Toledo to Madrid, and this was at the end of the 16th century. But we still keep the primacy in religious way. This is why when we have a king, or the Pope, when we had the Pope Paul II coming to Toledo, they open for him. Obviously, he has a key, as St. Peter. But hola, ¿qué tal? But this is just when we have something symbolical, because sometimes the Archbishop or Cardinal of Toledo goes out in this entrance when we have the king coming and say, King of Paradise, open the gate to the King of Earth. And then they open symbolically this entrance. My friend gave me this for you to see the shape of this building. Obviously, the lack of perspective in here don't allow us to see the cross shape that usually all the Christian temple has, and this cathedral. Now we are here, and the cathedral is facing east, as you know. Why? You will see soon inside. Sunrise has got its light, and it's beautiful inside when we move to this part of the cathedral, the cross shape that is really gorgeous. Muchas gracias. Sí. Vamos a ir para allá.
All Toledo tiene on the plus only 2 euros for 20 pictures in English. A cathedral, a general view, the synagogue, all the most important in town. Only 2 euros, about $3 American money. And you can buy in American money in installment.
Okay, now we are going inside the cathedral, okay? And we will visit all the cathedral with a beautiful part of it that we have inside.
So this will be called the Door of Glory?
Yes. It's the king door, the glory.
It's called the Door of Glory because ordinarily we would enter through here, the west. And then you see the glory of heaven, which is then exposed in its reality inside.
That's right. Yeah. In the middle, you can see the tradition, according to the tradition in Visigoth time. First of all, we had here, at Roman period, we had a Roman temple. When Visigoth came and Toledo was the capital, they destroyed the Roman temple to make the Basilica de Santa Maria, St. Mary. They got Catholic here, in Visigoth got Catholic in Toledo. When Muslim came, they destroyed the Christian temple to make the main mosque. The main mosque was facing to Mecca, that direction. When Christian reconquered the city, they destroyed the Muslim temple to make the cathedral, always like a pendle. It's history. And obviously, Christian faces to east. This is why. 1226 was setting the first stone. First stone, 1226, 13th century. Come this way. For such a beautiful piece of jewelry giving here. Take a look at the ceiling also. Move a little bit, yes. Come, yes. That way, move around for everybody have the choice of taking picture and enjoy the lovely monstrums. Gold leaf and gold thread and gold and silver and gold. First of all, yes, please move a little bit. You can take also your picture from the other side. For
Is that real gold?
real gold. It is real gold, it's real silver, it's real sapphires, pearls, diamonds, rubies. And I have told you about our fiestas here, yesterday, and Corpus Christi Day. Then we carry this out of the streets in Corpus Christi Day. Once a year, we have the procession. This is why we cover, most of the streets are covered with canopies, and we prepare everything. We open our houses that are around beautiful Korea. In Corpus Christi, we have a patio contest. Then everybody open their houses and decorate with the flowers and plants and the mantones de Manila for our granny. It's beautiful.
Can I ask one question? How did it survive the Civil War?
They sent to Cadiz. The father asked me how it survived to the Civil War. It was taken.
The communists were destroying everything.
Yes, I was thinking so.
Well, I don't agree with this. Okay, it has two parts. The inside one belonged to the Queen Isabel. Isabel. And when Isabel, la Católica, the Catholic, when she died, the Cardinal of Toledo was Cardinal Cisneros, a Franciscan one, the one that reformed the church. And then Cisneros bought the small one. The small one inside is gold, real gold, sapphires, pearls, diamond. I asked the people, because last year it was restored. And I asked the people that restored it to have a conference. It was amazing because we got 6 hours of conference describing the 30,000 pieces. 30,000 pieces joined by 12,000 smallest group that are part of this gorgeous and unique new world monstrance. The one inside belonged to Isabel. When she died, she said in her testament, I want my belongings to be sold and give the money to the poor people around. And Cardinal Cisneros, the Cardinal of Toledo, bought the small one and made a contest that was won by Enrique de Arfe. This is why we call it Arfe, monstrance. And Enrique de Arfe made the outside, just as a curiosity. For instance, if you follow this column, on the top there is Saint Michael. Saint Michael with the dragon at her feet, one sword in one hand and one balance in the other. Saint Michael can move the balance and he can move the sword. Just for you to see the small details that take part of this unique monstrance in the world. We carry out of the street in a special carriage that has a special system. I keep it always in horizontal because Toledo is up and down, and it's beautiful. Toledo is beautiful. For Corpus Christi week, is plenty of color. The smell is nice. We also decorate the outside of the cathedral with tapestry from 16th, 17th century, and obviously the protagonist in this piece of jewelry is the Holy Host, Corpus Christi, the body of Jesus Christ.
We travelled the 210 kilometres or 127 miles, a 2.5-hour journey, to Guadeloupe from Toledo. This statue of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Extremadura region of western Spain is not to be confused with the tomb of Our Lady of Guadalupe, Tepeyac, Mexico. The statue of Our Lady of Guadalupe, which was carved by St. Luke the Evangelist, was given to Saint Leander, Bishop of Seville, by Pope St. Gregory I, in gratitude to Saint Leander for converting the Visigoth kings, St. Hermegild and Ricared. In the year 714, less than 150 years after Pope St. Gregory had given St. Leander the statue, Seville fell to the Moors. The image was taken by priests who were fleeing the Moorish armies to the region of Guadalupe River in Extremadura. The priests who fled north with the statue buried it in the hills near Guadalupe River to prevent the Moors from discovering it. The statue was so well hidden that in fact the Moors never did find it, and for a long while neither did the Catholics. At the beginning of the 14th century, a shepherd called Gil Cordeiro began to report apparitions of Our Lady in his field near the present-day city of Cáceres. Our Lady ordered Gil Cordeiro to enlist the help of priests to dig at the place where she had appeared to him. The priests soon unearthed the statue along with all the documents and found Our Lady of Guadalupe to be in perfect condition. Alfonso XI, King of Castile and Leon, became one of the first regular pilgrims to Guadalupe. King Alfonso XI wanted to expand the Chapel of Guadalupe into a church and monastery, but he died in 1350, so it was completed by Juan I of Castile. King Juan I entrusted the shrine to the Hernomalites order of St. Jerome. The monastery maintained its royal patronage until 1835, when church properties were seized and religious orders dispersed in Spain during the First Carlist War. Among the many noteworthy personages that visited the monastery of Our Lady of Guadalupe was Queen Isabella I, and King Ferdinand II, and Christopher Columbus. After Columbus reached America in 1492, he returned to the monastery of Our Lady of Guadalupe to give thanks to God through the intercessions of the Virgin of Guadalupe, who had granted him a safe voyage. And from here, we traveled the 560 kilometers or 350 miles, a 6-hour journey to Avila. As we tour around this fortress city, we take in the sights that depicts grandeur and strength of the people that once lived here and defended themselves and Christianity from the vile, destructive forces of evil and hatred. We were stunned. Our imagination could not truly appreciate the courage and determination to survive, the faith and the fortitude that was fully alive at that time. It is in places such as this that we are reminded that we are Catholics and born to fight, and to give our life where necessary for each other, for the faith, and for the mother of us all.
Walking stick using by Santa Teresa at the apple. Just in the middle is the finger.
Oh, that's the finger.
The finger is mummified, was mummified.
Okay.
The parts of the body were traded for survival.
Did they cut it?
Yes. For sewing by Santa Teresa. This is the discipline, that means the belt. And this is a piece of bone belonging to St. John of the Cross. St. John of the Cross was a Carmelite, a monk Carmelite that collaborated with Santa Teresa in the Reformation.
And also don't forget that it's not just the person's body, bones or hair, but also everything attached to the person. So for instance, St. Peter, people used to have their handkerchiefs touch St. Peter. This isn't the Acts of the Apostles. They touch St. Peter and they take the handkerchief that St. Peter touched and bring it to the sick who are also healed. They keep their sick on the road so that the shadow of St. Peter, when it fell on them, was also healed. We read that in the Acts of the Apostles. Of course, some people use to bottle the shadow of St. Peter. And
they go to that.
I'm joking.
And here are some of her quotes. Be gentle to all and stern with yourself. Prayer is an act of love. Words are not needed. Even if sickness distracts from thoughts, all that is needed is the will to love. More tears are shed over answered prayers than unanswered ones. Don't let your sins turn into bad habits. I have often thought with wonder of the great goodness of God, and my soul has rejoiced in the contemplation of His great magnificence and mercy.
St. John of the Cross was a Carmelite that was a contemporary of Santa Teresa, and he was younger than herself, but that collaborated with Santa Teresa in the rules of the order, in the rules of the development of the Reformation. He was persecuted by his order, was in a prison, was in a small and dark place, and he wrote there, in that condition, the best work of literature, mystical literature, that is called Cántico Espiritual. He wrote about like a poetry of love with God.
Spiritual songs.
Yes, yes, and spiritual songs, yes, Cántico Espiritual. And in fact, he was very rude, was very simple and rude, and Santa Teresa and himself elaborate with San Pedro de Alcántara, was a Franciscan. The three elaborate the development of the Reformation. And he was persecuted by the order, and he died in the south, in Andalusia. And the body of himself is in Segovia, near to Ávila, in a convent of Carmelite monks. Santa Teresa and St. John of the Cross met in the second foundation of Santa Teresa, because Santa Teresa founded the first convent here in Ávila, and 5 years later she founded near of between Ávila and Valladolid, near of Ávila, 70 kilometers from Ávila, and there was a community of monks that St. John was just thinking about the necessity of change some rules, and the coincidence of themselves, they collaborate with the same and collaborate together, and Santa Teresa got himself from the convent over there and brought here in Ávila in the Incarnation like confessor of the nuns.
Bless us, O Lord,
and these thy gifts which you are about to receive, and their bounty through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Christ be our true food, now and always. Amen. Father, Son, and Spirit. Amen.
May you trust God that you are exactly where you are meant to be. Devotions to Our Lady of Pilar is perhaps the oldest Marian devotion in Europe. According to tradition, in 36 AD, while she was still on earth, Our Lady bilocated and appeared to St. James on the banks of the river Ebro, near what is now Zaragoza. Appearing on a 6-foot pillar of jasper, she comforted and encouraged St. James and his disciples in their missionary work. Our Lady commanded that a chapel be built on the spot in honor of her, as she promised her assistance to those who invoke her. The apostle was quick to carry out the wishes of the Queen of Apostles. Multiple church structures have occupied the site, each one larger than the one it replaced. Today, the Basilica of Nuestra Señora de Pilar, as it is formally known, includes 11 brightly colored tiled domes and is the second biggest church in Spain. Only the Cathedral of Seville is larger. Its construction began in 1681 under the direction of King Charles II. Parts of its interior date back even further, including a magnificent main altar of alabaster designed by Damien Formant in the 15th century. King Ferdinand VI, in 1753, commissioned the building of the side chapel which houses Our Lady's pillar. On the pillar, whose jasper cannot be matched anywhere in the world, is erected a 15-inch statue of Our Lady with the child Jesus, who holds a dove. One tradition says that Our Lady herself gave the statue to St. James, while others states that St. James commissioned it. Regardless of its origin, many miracles attest to heaven's predilection for the relic. In many of its many prodigies is the fact that in almost 2,000 years the statue has never needed dusting. In 1936, the communists dropped bombs on the shrine, but the two that hit the church failed to detonate. And from here, we travel to Montserrat, some 270 kilometers or 170 miles and a 3-hour drive. According to tradition, the miraculous image was first known as the native of Jerusalem, since it is thought to have been carved there in the early days of the church. The statue was eventually given to St. Ethrio, Bishop of Barcelona, who brought it to Spain. In the 7th century, when Saracens invaded Spain, the Christians of Barcelona heroically defended their city for 3 years. When they could no longer hold out, they decided to take their treasured image of Our Lady to a secret safe place. Quietly, with the knowledge of the bishop and the governor of the city, a group brought the statue to Montserrat, placing it in a small cave on April 22nd, 718. A complete account of the origin of the miraculous image, the cause of its removal, and the place of its hidden security was recorded and placed in the archives of Barcelona.
Once you are in Montserrat, the road stops here, so you cannot continue. It's completely enclosed within.
So you have to go out the way you came in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it was, once they arrived here, it was impossible to escape.
Yeah.
Okay, what we see now in front of us. First of all, if we look to the left, we see this beautiful with these balconies. These are the cells of the monks. This is where the monks live. So this is area with these little balconies, a very beautiful view. Then these are the cells. Then you can see next to these balconies, to the right-hand side, we have the basilica, the church. So this beautiful basilica, the building itself was built in the 16th century. There was an older little chapel, but in the 16th century, this little chapel became too small for the large amount of people coming to Montserrat. And then in the 16th century, we have a new, bigger, beautiful basilica. We usually say that Montserrat is 3 things. It's a mountain with a special geology. It is a monastery, a Benedictine monastery, that was founded in the 11th century, in 1025. And then it's a sanctuary where we worship the Black Madonna of Montserrat.
A complete account of the origin of the miraculous image, the cause of its removal, and the place of its hidden security was recorded and placed in the archives of Barcelona. The location of the statue was eventually forgotten until 890, when shepherd boys of Monistrol, a village at the foot of Montserrat, while tending their flocks at night, were surprised by lights and the sound of singing coming from the mountain. When this reoccurred, they reported the matter to their priest. On investigating the matter, he too heard the singing and saw the mysterious lights, of which he informed the bishop, who in turn witnessed the same occurrence. The statue was discovered in the cave and was placed in a small church that was soon built. This little church developed into the present church that was completed in 1590. Eventually a monastery was added and grew rapidly because of the miracles wrought by the Blessed Virgin. Carved in wood, the statue is in a sitting position and measures slightly over 3 feet in height. In Romanesque style, the figure is slender, with an elongated face and a delicate expression. The dress of the Virgin consists of a tunic and cloak, but gilded and plain in design, which is draped. Beneath the crown is a veil adorned with stars, squares, and stripes in subtle shades of colour. The right hand of the Virgin holds a sphere, while the other is extended in a graceful gesture. The child Jesus sits on the mother's lap and also wears a crown and lovely garments. His right hand is raised in blessing. His left hand holds an object that resembles a large pine cone. And from here we travel the 65 kilometers to Barcelona, some 40 miles away and 1 hour's drive. As we arrive in Barcelona, we see evidence of the terrorist attacks the day before we entered Barcelona. And so we were denied the delights of the city and had to remain on the coach to view some of its beauties. The new cathedral passed by, but we took moments to see its edifice and very unusual style. Maybe when it is completed, we will venture back to enjoy the beauties that it offers. There are many, many buildings of very unusual styles in Barcelona. We board the train in Barcelona for the final leg of our pilgrimage, a 9-hour journey at fairly high speeds to France, the elder daughter of the church, where for many centuries the church flourished, and Our Lady visited many times, showing her deepest love and tenderness to the poor, but also inspiring the wealthy and even the emperors so that her children may not stray. But Satan has managed to inveigle his wickedness into the hearts of a few, who have spread his poison throughout France and the rest of Europe and beyond.
Becoming a bishop, I was the rector of Notre Dame of Paris. And there we are, with a group of Guadeloupe in Notre Dame. Yes, yes. Yeah, you will have the picture. Eh? Oh! And there we are. There we are. They were very happy because I hear my name. I was rector during 2 years before becoming Bishop of Pontoise in the suburb of Paris.
Yeah.
And I was sent by Pope Benedict to Guadeloupe because they did not have bishop for years. And they need a bishop. I am not black, but anyway, no problem. We are black, we are white together.
You're Catholic.
Yeah, oh yeah. So make a picture.
Where, Father? In the church or right here?
On the night of the 18th of July, 1830, Catherine Labourier, a 24-year-old novice sister in the Daughters of Charity convent of Rue de Bac in Paris, was woken up by a figure she later took to be her guardian angel, and followed him to the chapel, saw the Blessed Virgin. Mary descends the altar steps and sits in the spiritual director's chair. She told Catherine of the mission she had for her and of the bad times which were to come, but promised help and grace for those who prayed. In particular, she spoke of the religious persecution which would break out in Paris later in the century, while also foretelling the more imminent events in the capital. Catherine repeated all this to her spiritual director, Father Al-Adel, who was skeptical, but his skepticism vanished when the revolution in Paris began, just 9 days later, on the 27th of July, 1830. Later in the same year, on the 27th of November, Catherine again saw the Virgin in the chapel during community meditation. She was dressed in white, standing on a globe, and holding a golden ball with rings on her fingers flashing with lights. An inner voice told her that the ball represented the whole world, France and every individual, and that the rays coming from the Virgin's fingers represented graces offered to individuals. The golden ball then vanished as this apparition changed to represent Mary with her arms outstretched. Inside an oval frame with golden lettering, "O Mary, conceived without sin, pray for us who has recourse to thee." Again an interior voice spoke, telling her to have a medal struck on this model, it would be a source of great graces and should be worn around the neck. Then she was shown the reverse of the medal, consisting of a large M, surmounted by a bar and cross, with two hearts representing the hearts of Jesus and Mary, all encircled by 12 stars. Again, Father Aladel was reluctant to act, but once the medal was struck and distributed, it rapidly earned the title of the Miraculous Medal. A canonical inquiry initiated by Bishop de Quillen concluded that Catherine was of good character, that the apparitions she had reported were worthy of belief and were to be accepted, and that the Miraculous Medal was supernaturally inspired and responsible for genuine miracles. It was an important element in reviving the Catholic faith in France, as well as in preparing the way for the proclamation of the dogma of Our Lady's Immaculate Conception by Pope Pius IX. Notre Dame de Paris, meaning Our Lady of Paris, was also known as Notre Dame Cathedral, or simply Notre Dame. It is a medieval cathedral and is widely considered to be one of the finest examples of French Gothic architecture, and it is amongst the largest and best known church buildings in the Catholic Church in France and in the world. The naturalism of its sculptures and stained glass serve to contrast it with earlier Romanesque architecture. As the Cathedral of the Archdiocese of Paris, Notre Dame contains the Cathedral of the Archbishop of Paris, currently Cardinal André. The cathedral treasury contains a reliquary which houses some of Catholicism's most important relics, including the purported crown of thorns, a fragment of the true cross, and one of the holy nails. In the 1790s, Notre Dame suffered desecration in the radical phase of the French Revolution, when much of its religious imagery was damaged or destroyed. An extensive restoration supervised by Eugene Viollet-le-Duc began in 1845. A project of further restoration and maintenance began in 1991. The Basilica of the Sacred Heart of Paris, commonly known as Sacré-Cœur Basilica and often simply Sacré-Cœur, is a Roman Catholic church and minor basilica dedicated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus in Paris, France. A popular landmark, the basilica is located at the summit of the Montmartre, the highest point in the city. Sacré-Cœur is a double monument, political and cultural, both a national presence for the defeat of France in the 1870 Franco-Prussian War and the Socialist Paris Commune of 1871, crowning its most rebellious neighborhood and an embodiment of the conservative moral order, publicly dedicated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, which was an increasingly popular vision of a loving and sympathetic Christ. The basilica was designed by Paul Abadie. Construction began in 1875 and was completed in 1914. The basilica was consecrated after the end of World War I in 1919.